Hello, hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome back to the Bushiroad Rumble Online 2022 V-Premium European Tournament. Once again, my name is Ben, also known as Zistral of Yellow Card Vanguard, and joining me again for the top 8, we have JJ, also known as GG Mr. Rogers, and Eric, also known as Mr. Timeleap of Vanguard Insider. So, fellas, we've just finished the Swiss of yesterday's 8 rounds of very interesting matchups. It just goes to show you that even with the new restriction list, that V Premium really has evolved. There's a lot more diversity. It's not just like one or two decks in top anymore. Sure, some decks are being more represented than others, but we have a surprisingly varied top 8 to go through. What are your guys' thoughts coming into this morning?
Dynamic gameplay. That's my phrase for this morning. Dynamic matches, dynamic gameplay all through this weekend. A lot of these players play their heart out, bringing decks that have been playing for a very long time, since a lot of the format tends to stay the same for a bit. So a lot of repetition and getting your deck under your belt and learning how to play it efficiently is a very prominent thing.
I think we're gonna see some very exciting things, but usually I would say something about the game. But honestly, from yesterday, the only thing I've been dreaming of last night was trains, sledgehammers, and all these weird things we talked about yesterday, which we're probably gonna see today as well.
All right, for sure. So, as you guys know, we've this is the second week of BRO, but we still have 3 more rounds of top 8 for you to go through. So, JJ, why don't you walk us through the format for this weekend and today what we're gonna see?
All right, for this whole weekend, the 30th and the 31st, you guys experienced 8 rounds of Cardfight Vanguard. Right now in this format, we'll be playing 3 more rounds to go. It'll be for the top 8, semifinals, and for the finals as well. So I will take a look at the best of one single elimination for 35 minutes around. So these players are going to have a little bit of time to be able to think, focus, and concentrate to diligently find the best angle to secure their victory.
Yep, that's right. We've seen a lot of these players on stream throughout yesterday as well. And I think we've said it before, but this really is a star-studded top 8. A lot of the players here have a lot of wins under their belt already, and I think it'll just go to show, this seeing them again in the top 8 just really like grinding out their chops, proving their mettle as it were. But real quick, this is the second week of the Bushiroad Rumble Online circuit. We still have many more events for you to go. We're only halfway through. So week 2 is the V-Premium tournament, which you're watching right here, right now. And then after a 1 week break, for the judges and the tiers to catch their breath and take a relax, in the second weekend of August, the 13th to 14th, we'll be running the Vanguard Standard Tournament. I think that's the one that a lot of people are looking forward to the most. It's got the most participation numbers, and I think it's the one where the format is the most varied and shaken up because, Standard was already, in my opinion, the most evenly balanced and most diverse format to begin with, and now with the recent new sets and new changes, there's everything to look out for. So hopefully we'll see as many of you here in 2 weeks' time, same time as always, UTC +1 or 5 p.m. SGT. But yeah, that's gonna be the 3 of us again. And of course, BRA season doesn't end there. The week after, to round it all off, last but not least, we have the Weiss Schwarz tournament on the 20th and the 21st of August. Of course, Weiss Schwarz is the last of the Bushiroad's games, and I myself will be back here commentating that. Eric and JJ unfortunately will not, but I'll be joined by some other well-known commentators. But hopefully I will see as many of you there for that as well. But focusing our attention back to this week, we still have the top 8 of V Premium. So Eric, why don't we take a look at what the players are playing for today?
And they're playing today for some very nice prizes because they're playing for not only certificates, booster boxes, but also a very nice winner's promo card, this time being the Seeker Thing Saver Dragon. So for any Royal Paladin fans, you know who to call when you're looking for these cards. As we can see here, if you enter the 4th place, they will get a certificate which they can use to brag on their colleagues, their roommates, and even their friends and pets. But moving on to the 3rd place, we got not only will they win a certificate, they also win a booster box as well as 1 copy of the winner's promo. Moving up to 2nd place, they get a booster box, a certificate, and 2 copies of the winner's promo. And for the grand prize of the winner, we not only get the booster box, the certificate, but more importantly, a full playset of the winner's promo Seeker Thing Saver Dragon. So these are very nice prizes, and I think these players are looking forward to fight for these cards and booster packs. But
yeah, that's right.
But that's not all, because now that we know the prices, let's head over to the brackets to actually see what we're going to see this today and who's going to face who.
Yep, absolutely. So once again, ladies and gentlemen, this is your top 8. We've got Manlong versus Any, East versus Toby TCG, Full Metal Paladin 21 versus Double T, and WCC Suo versus Andre Lee. Again, I just want to call out people's attention there to the very bottom there, Suo versus Andre Lee. It's a WCC team kill. They've got 3 members in the top 8, but it's going to be difficult for them to actually take home the trophy. But yeah, some really exciting matchups here. And I think we're going to show you Manlong versus Any for the first round of top 8. It's going to be a very exciting deck, very exciting matchup. But before we get into that, let's take a look at the other top 8 players' deck lists first. So I think starting up, we're going to be looking at Leask's deck list. So guys, let's not beat around the bush. We know Gurgit is tier 0. It's like one of the 2 best decks in the format right now. There's not really a lot to say here. It's pretty stock. You've got the 2 Fallons, you've got the 2 Josephuses, some quote-unquote interesting tech choices, but the Gurgits, the Max Slashes, the Sagramors, Aglabels, all the important stuff is there.
I think this is what we would expect from a Gurgit player with a little bit of spice. We've seen this deck in action earlier yesterday, so we can basically assume what's going to happen today, but this is probably going to be a good performance of Gurgit, and maybe we're going to see it moving forward even into the finals.
Yep, that's right. Looking up next to his opponent, we are up against Toby TCG, who is playing Genesis. Now, Astral Poets has been one of those decks that it's not flown under the radar, but it's definitely not tier 0 like people would say like Bermuda or Gold Paladin is. But at the same time, it's a very simple, straightforward deck. You just find your grade 3s, you find your Valkyrian, and then you just send your opponent to the moon. So I'm not surprised that Toby's gotten this far with it. He's also a very good player. So we'll definitely see if he can maybe snatch some wins by, as he says from the deck name, being faster than Gurgit.
Well, he's facing up against Gurgit, so let's see if those words hold true.
Yep, and then moving on, we are going to be looking at Full Metal Paladin 21. So he's playing Revengers. Now, JJ, I think I'm right in saying that we both agree that this is one of the next best deck. We would be not surprised to see it share a podium with the likes of Gurgit, but it's up there, but I'm not sure if it's that much up there. What are your takes on this deck?
I think next to Gurgit, it is I would possibly say next to Gurgit and next to Anj. Anj is also one of those archetypes that is like, if you sleep on it, it'll take some games off of you. And Revengers being able to accumulate a 14-card hand at any given moment is also one of those prospects as well. You got to be careful about it. It is more or less a deck of jam as much Revengers in the deck as possible. It's up to the teeth of Revengers, playing 1 copy of Bronwyn in there. There's not much diversity until we get more support for the archetype. You could possibly mix it with Mordred if you're feeling a little bit spicy, add a little bit more difficulty to your deck if you want to. But outside of that, I think it's just like, it's real good. Just play it as it is, and it'll never let you down.
For sure. All right, and then moving on to his opponent, we have Double T, and here is something that I'm very surprised to see in the top 8. It's Isabel. Now, we saw this on stream yesterday, and he did very, very well. I think he actually beat Gurgit, which is quite the achievement. But yeah, this is one of those decks that just it has a lot going for it. It has a lot of text. All of its cards have loads of text, as we can see from the images, and it just does its game plan and goes from there. What do you think?
I think this deck is something that a lot of players are underestimating, as when Isabel initially was released, people thought the game mechanic was very RNG and it didn't really be very consistent. But with the consecutive releases and updates to the deck, it started to become more aggressive, more consistent. It gave more options, especially with the new Isabel. But a lot of players might forget the power of Monoculous Tiger. That thing can take games if you're not careful, especially with the power stacking that Isabel provides. And nowadays, also top deck manipulation, which we literally saw happening in Gurgit yesterday, where they checked the top cards, stacked triggers, put a lot of power on the front row, and then made a column that they couldn't guard with Monoculous Tiger. And we might see it today again, because this deck can take names if people are not very careful with it.
Yeah, definitely looking forward to that. All right, and then moving on to the WCC team kill, we start off with Stephen Lee, also known as Swo. He's playing Thavas. Now, again, this is just like Revenger, one of those decks that I would say is tier 1. Can definitely make a podium finish, but I think it's just missing that little bit of unfairness. Of course, we have the new cards being Adelaide and Pursuit Assault, really pushing this deck to the next level. We see So doesn't have his Adelaides yet, I assume maybe because of distributor delays or accessibility, whatever reason, but he does have the all-important 4 Pursuit Assault, and I think that card is definitely what puts Aquaforce in a league of its own.
I agree with you. Since he also is going to, instead of using the Adelaide, he's using terrific coil dragging of being able to get another form of multi-attack off and using the Pursuit Assaults of being able to draw additional cards. I really do like the addition of this for him since he's running 4 of it. He wants to make sure to secure all more forms for his Thavos of being able to get into Lambros as quickly as he possibly can. I really like his ratios.
Yeah, I think this list is super well built. And, we saw, I believe, Theo Mahato playing Thavos on stream as well yesterday. And again, you can just see that that deck builds a board out of nowhere, multi-attacks from nowhere, and it forced Revenges down to the last card in hand. So I think this is definitely going to be an interesting matchup. But let's take a look at his teammate and opponent, which is Andre Lee. And we see here, Andre is playing... So we've seen a lot of variants of Ange over yesterday. There are a lot of different builds of Bermuda. And so I'm going to call this build Ange Relenka, because it's playing 4 copies of that grade 3 Relenka, who has a very, very powerful rearguard effect, and works very well with Ange's ability to bounce the board and then call one from the deck. So when you have a Relenka on the board, when you use Ange to bounce it, that already puts 1 copy in the hand for you to discard 2 Relenka to restand, because you're searching for the 3rd from the deck to attack with. And we see here that he's playing some one-offs like the Pearl Sisters and bits and pieces here and there, but he's not fully committed to the Highlander package. There's no Kutere, he's only got 2 Betty, he's not playing Reindeers, so he's a lot more focused on the Ange, and I like this build a lot because, rather than quote-unquote playing for the high roll with Highlander, you're just all in on Ange, you just all in on consistency, you're just going to every single game, play Ange, play Relenka, bounce, multi-attack, and stack force markers.
Yeah, I like this deck a lot. I had the opportunity to see this deck in action last night when another WCC member was piloting this in NA. I believe it was Derek Dow also playing this deck, or at least a variant of it. It's a very powerful deck that just can explode out of nowhere, because a lot of players might forget that Ange does achieve multi-attack, but it can have hidden multi-attack if you call something like a Tyria or the grade 3 that we see 4 copies of, which can catch players off guard if they not take that in consideration, or they out nowhere can come with crit pressure if they superior call one of the Pearl Sisters. So this is a very interesting deck that can surprise players because of the tutor mechanic or possibility of Ange during the battle phase. So you never know what might be up against your side when you're up against the deck. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this deck is going to perform in this game.
Yep, for sure. And now let's move on to our stream game, the last match of top 8, the one that we'll be watching, and we have Manlong versus Any. So, like I was saying, there's a lot of different builds for Bermuda, and we see that Manlong has fully committed to the Highlander package. His deck is full of tons of one-offs, he's got his Reindeer, he's got 3 copies of Kutere for maximum Highlander consistency, and he still has the 4 Ange, but he's not playing the Relenka for the reliable multi-attack. He's more, playing all these tech options just to give a bit of that flexibility. And the fact that he's also made top 8 shows that all of these different builds are viable.
Yeah, the interesting thing is with this particular build is that we see the drop of the grade 3 with 4 copies. That could potentially be another extender, but here we see Caro for more consistent rewrites. It can be nice for Ange to stack more force markers, or potentially searching out our Q-Tire to search more the decks. So this feels more like a deck filtering basis, where you want to filter your deck, search out your cards as fast as possible, use Ange as an extender as well as filtering your deck, and then try to win with the multi-attacks with all the potential crits that can come your opponent's way with all the deck filtering. So this is a different flavor of Ange, which looks very interesting, yet similar, but at the same time very different from what we just saw with the other player from WCC.
Yep, and then finally moving on to the last player, we have Any playing Overlord. Now, I gave everyone a tease of this yesterday just before we signed off, but again, look at this trigger lineup. 12 crit, 4 draw. My man is saying full send, blinkers on, faces the place. Now, JJ, I know that you and I are both Kagero enthusiasts. What's your take on this list?
I like it. I like it a lot. I like the bravery. This is playing Kagero on hard mode, and I like it. I like this. This is fun. This is super fun. This is super interesting. I will, however, only point to one thing. I am a bit nervous that he's playing no copies of Decat, though, which is the 9k grade 2 that allows you to give guard restrict to your Overlord the Ends, since the cross becomes a copy of the End in your soul, and he's playing no copies of Burnout, being able to recycle any of the grade 3s back into the deck. But in place of that, he's using Torrid Cannon and Berserk Dragon when you want the on place and draw of them and the retire and draw of them. So he wants to secure a lot more draw effects, so you can secure a lot more shield in hand and more utility pieces and drawing into something like Calamity Towers or drawing into Heat Shot Dragon. I like it. It's a fun, interesting perspective on Kagero, and I'm here for it. I'm hoping he does well.
Absolutely. Well, in that case, I think the players are all ready. Let's not keep you guys waiting on the excitement any longer and jump straight into the game. So we have here Manlong on the left and Any on the right. Now, I just want to quickly highlight again here, we said that the Manlong's version of Ange is all about filtering, deck thinning, getting to a point where he's got triggers in the deck, extending with Ange, and then just gradually grinding out the game from there. And then on the other side of the table, we have Any playing Overlord with no heals, all crits, who just wants to ride grade 3 and just end his opponent's life. And when you hear those two dynamics, what is your initial opinion of, like, okay, this is favored, that's favored, here's what the game is going to be like?
I think it'll be up to the initial early turns. Like, Kagero usually has the issue of, like, some of their early rearguard turns can sometimes be a bit lackluster, but with Any's list of multiple grade 2s that are effective both on rearguard and Vanguard, and he has a low to the ground commitment, and he can be a bit more aggressive in the early, I think it can be really, really divisive here. It'll probably come down to who hits what on what turns. It could be like one of those type of dynamics, I feel.
Yeah, so I just want to quickly highlight here that something I keep talking about when it comes to V-Premium is the dynamic of going first and second. Mm-hmm. Now, this particular matchup has a huge dynamic of going first second because Overlord, its biggest enemy is Healed Guardians, but Manlong going first won't have access to Healed Guardians because he's probably going to ride grade 3 first. So he's not going to be able to -2 crit Any's Overlord. But on the other side, Ange doesn't need your opponent to be grade 3 to do anything, so Manlong is more than happy to ride grade 3, get his pluses, get his multi-attack, and start going off on the game. So Manlong there, making a full board on turn 2, very aggressive. He's got the Lees a lot, and he's got a full body of attackers. This is probably one of the best turns for, I think, a Highlander variant of Bermuda could possibly ask for. The crit coming in as well, and he's just going to take 2 damage. Gets a defensive, but it's not a heal. He loses one of his copies of the End. It's one of his core cards. But fortunately, the defensive makes all of these attacks much easier to guard. So he saves off some early damage, and it's almost a bit worrying here because Overlord. The point is that you're supposed to be able to multi-attack Vanguard loads and loads of times with crit pressure and just overwhelm your opponent. But if your opponent's on low damage, they can just afford to no-guard 1 or 2 of these attacks, and then you're kind of just waiting for something to happen.
Also, at the same time, I feel like Any built his deck with the intent to always be the main aggressor, the one that leads the aggression here. But now that we see actually the opposite happening, where Manlong is taking the initiative, Any is at higher damage, which means that even though he played no heals, those heals might have been active, could be active in this game if Any doesn't start to pump up the aggression. So it comes down to if he hits a critical here, or is he able to commit a bit more to the board. But at the same time, we know Overlord doesn't plus as much, and they do not really get a lot of value of rearguard. So I'm curious of how much value Any puts on putting more aggression here on this turn.
Yeah, I like what Any did there, is that, as you can see, Torrid Cannon only draws you a card if you have 4 or less cards in hand. So what he did was he committed extra rearguards to go down to 4 cards so that he could refund with Torrid Cannon and refund again with the ammo. And like JJ, like you said, by playing all of these grade 2s that are active early on in the game, he can stave off this aggression from Manlong and commit almost an equal amount of aggression himself back.
Mm-hmm. It will. You're right. It will have to see though how this pans out, since that early crit trigger is gonna put a little bit of a dent in his plan, and especially when Manlong is going to his grade 2 turn. He's contemplating whether or not he wants to give him this damage, being as though since he is going to his Ange turn, it's gonna be scary here. But he said, it's fine. I have to go in. He has to go in here.
Yeah, Anj only needs one counterblast to go up, and given that Manlong counterblasted on turn 1, there was, I think, an argument for damage denial. But like I said, when you're Overlord, when your game plan is to just bum rush your opponent, you need your opponent to be on as high damage as possible in order to get there.
Yes, that's right.
And Manlong is just gonna, looks like, take 2 damage, guard the last one. But yeah, 3-2. This is especially relevant because now that Manlong already has the Anj, he has all of its effects live on turn 3 already. Maybe he's going to fish for another heal. Knowing that his heal guns have turned off, maybe he just wants to heal down to 4 and just survive.
I like the play of Manlong putting himself to free damage, especially in his Overlord, because not only does it allow him to potentially heal as he's at more damage, also if he stays at free damage, he's in a comfortable position against Annie's Overlord turn, because usually Overlord players go for Force 2, which meant if he went to 4, every attack is lethal. Now he has a chance to potentially take one if he hasn't the guard, because we see the Wyvern on the board, so we know that the Overlord is going to get a significant power, so they could battle Force 2 in their following turn here. So Manlong is definitely preparing for his following turn, which is a good sign as he probably feels comfortable to have this turn, survive next turn, and potentially kill the next turn after that.
Yeah, so we can see here that Anj doesn't need to be on grade 3. Any has, it looks like 7 or 6 cards in hand. I think Manlong is going to end his turn with a lot more than that.
As Bermuda Triangle usually does. Did he discard a Perla?
No it looks way. Like he did, yeah. That's interesting. Maybe he's just going for not trying to just out pressure any and just out grind. Because the thing about Overlord is that if Overlord commits for a kill turn, they have to give up so many resources, so many cards in hand. And I think Annie's just waiting to say like, okay, well I'm going to stay on low damage. I'm going to force you to commit the discard 3 to restand, and then I'm just going to, pull the rug out from under you now that you're out of resources. So you see here he's adding the Tirawa with his Sedna. We saw him bounce the Kutere with Aqua just now. And he just discards the Tirawa just for deck thinning, which I like. Another Sedna, again, I assume just for more deck thinning. And possibly we'll see Kutere come down again.
Okay, so I guess what he's probably trying to do... What could be his possible game plan be here? Because Tirawa is a combo piece. Pearl is a combo piece. Do you think he's just gonna farm cards out of his deck and just use those as beat sticks to just pressure his opponent?
I think so, because the only awkward thing is that Kutere can't really add trigger units. So the biggest pieces of shield, the best cards in this deck being the PGs against Overlord, you don't have access to. So I think what he's trying to do here is he's trying to add maybe some grade 1s that have shield, or utility grade 2s just to help him grind it all out. One card that I personally be looking for here if I was in Manlong's shoes would be the Nikita, who can Soul Blast a bunch to gain a bunch of extra shield. Of course, the other thing Manlong has to be worried about is that by riding grade 3 first, Any will not lose drive checks. He'll be going 2-1-1 instead of 2-1-0, meaning there'll be that little bit of extra pressure going into that attack turn.
That's right. So it looks like he's calling out one of the best grade 1s in the archetype, actually. I really love this card a whole lot.
Yep, Steza in the back row. Really, again, helps him with that grind, stops him from decking out, gives him resources, and by taking a bunch of damage earlier, he has the counterblast to use it and do everything he needs, to recycle his Tyros, recycle his Anjas. But here he's going to resolve Anja's effect, get the Force Marker, bounce the Kutere, maybe search for another one? Yep, I knew it. He's just going to try and go for another plus here.
Yeah, getting plus 10 on his Vanguard, and also using Steza's skill to possibly put back the Tiro back in, or even Anj back in, or just any other utility grade 3 that he might need.
I would probably assume he's going to go for the Tyria because he only plays 2 copies of it, and with one already in drop zone, and we don't know where the second copy is. There's the second one still in deck. So
I think he's looking for an Anj. He wants to re-ride next turn, and again, just farm those Force Markers, just build that aggression, and just, get himself to a point where, Overlord already doesn't farm cards as much as Bermuda does, and now he's just saying, well, I'm just going to have more cards than you, more Force Markers than you, eventually you won't be able to guard any of this. Which I like the idea of that a lot. I like that he has the Steza that he can recycle the Tiro with, and so Manlong has the late game. As long as he can survive at least 1 or 2 of these Overlord swings, he's definitely in a good position.
Yeah, that's right. Since he has, right now we know that he has, 20k shield in his hand, because he did call the Grade 1 Searchers down first, and you resolve both of their skills, so you can apply that for next turn again if he wants to filter his deck even further, and it's just base his shield that he'll probably need for next coming turn. So this is going to be very interesting to see how he can get through this, and plus he filtered his deck of like, what, 6 or 7 normal units so far, so it's pretty nutty.
Yeah, Any there taking a very risky no guard on the Vanguard swing, but Manlong checks 0 triggers, and he takes the 1 damage, no defensive, but he does resolve the Steza. Putting back the Tiro, I assume. Nope, he's going to put back an Orange, interesting. Oh, Tiro does go back, and he draws a card. And then this Q-Ray is now 33 into Any's 10. He's just going to take that as well, wow. I think what Any's looking for here is, despite Manlong having, I think, almost 10 cards in hand, Any might just go for it, just say, like, you know, I'm going to put myself on 5, make it so that you can't heal out of my attacks. But again, like you say, without Decat in his list, he's going to have a lot of trouble going through that massive hand on Manlong's side.
I mean, we'll see how he's been able to do it the whole entire game, the whole entire day 1. So we'll see how he's been able to pull this off. This probably might be a matchup that he also might have just been able to avoid, or I guess he's also been able to pull his own aggression early, so then when he went into the cross, he's been able to finish it off. Because this matchup is not favorable. I think one of the worst matchups, or some of the worst matchup that Kagura has, I think it's Grand Blue and Bermuda by far, but it looks like he's trying to make it work here.
Yeah, so you see here, he's just resolving all of his effects, deck thinning as much as he possibly can. I'm going to see, you know, how many crits he can check on those drive checks.
So he's trying to do some deck filtering himself, getting as much of his normal units out of his deck as possible, and especially it allows him to add more cards out of his hand. He'll be able to copy the skill of Draconic Overlord, the End, that is currently in Soul. So this is a really awesome old school ability. I think it was from, what, V-Set 7, I think?
VEB7, yeah.
VEB7, as for Boost Set 7, and at the end of battle attack, you can activate either of these effects. You can either choose to, if you have 4 cards or let's in your hand, Counter Blast 1, Soul Blast 1 to get Drive -1 and restand himself. And then you can also, if your soul has another Overlord in your soul, and since he counts himself because you are on the cross and he copies this ability, he gets +10 and a Drive -1. But due to the cross's skill.
Wait. Oh, for a second I thought he said no guard because he gave the gesture, the hand gesture, but apparently he's asking for, I think, a trigger card.
Triggers out, yeah, I think it makes sense.
Yeah, I think so.
You know, even though Any doesn't have the Decat, he does still have the perfect column. He has the cross, pumped up by Calamity Tower, boosted by He Shot. So this is what, 18, 28. This is a 36k column at least twice, possibly 3 times. And if he does use, you know, looking at the end, players are generally going to want to use the discard 3 first to get the extra 10k, because the 10k applies throughout the rest of the turn. So it's going to be, the trigger coming, this is now going to be 48, 58, potentially 2 more times after this. So Manlong, I think, gave him a 2 to pass there, using 3 triggers. And now Eddie's discarding, wow, the rest of his DNs from hand. He's, discarding all those 0 shield cards. He's going to restand with +10k and -drive, which then in turn stands the Heat Shot.
I mean, this is also a dangerous play by Eddie now that we know this information, because we also saw already 3 turret cannons out of the deck. So if he cannot find the 4th copy, maybe he cannot even do the play next turn because he cannot reload his deck with the ends, because I think we already saw most of them at this point.
Yep, so this is what I was saying, like, you know, even though Manlong has a lot of cards in hand, he doesn't have a PG, he's burning so many cards just to guard this. You know, he Soul Blasted 3 for the Nikita, he's dropping 2 copies of his, you know, Grade 1 Searchers, and this is still, I think, 1 to pass.
Yeah, double Sedna, 40,
Triple
45.
Sedna. So I think that's now the no pass. The no trigger comes in, and now Any can Counter Blast 1, Soul Blast 1 to get 1 more stand. And this is going to be the final attack. Still with 1 drive, because Overlord, the cross, stops you from losing drive to Grade 3. There's the PG coming in finally from Manlong's hand. Crit comes in, this is huge. So now you can put it all onto the Berserk, which now hits numbers. And Manlong has 2 cards in hand. He went from 10 to 2.
Oh wow, so this is a situation where he could actually just give power to Berserk Dragon to make it 23 and give critical exactly to the burn. Oh wow! So you can give it to the other one and then make it so that he has to have double 15, or is he gonna pass?
So even though he had crit on Igniro, he chose to pass turn just to damage an Iron Man Long. I love this play because he sees, okay, you have 2 cards in hand. I'm gonna kill your only rear guard, so that next turn you draw for turn, go to 3 cards in hand. You only have 3 cards to play the game with and no counterblast. Just try to do something, right?
Yeah, because all he has to do next turn is maybe just attack with a rear guard for phase, because Berserk Dragon gets plus 3k when it attacks since he has more rear guards than him. So that's a 13k beater that he has to guard with, and then he still has to guard the Vanguard.
Yeah, and looking at Manlong's list, I don't think he plays any counter charge.
Oh, he does. He plays one.
He plays the one Spiana, right? Which I don't. Do we see him Kutere for it, or is he going to Kutere for it now?
I think he just QTA'd for it. He found it in the second card of his deck.
Okay, yeah. So he should still be able to play the game here. But again, he's going to have to all in commit everything, and especially if he counter charges one, that's only one counter charge. So he has to choose between Anj or Tirua. He doesn't get the multi-attack extension that we're so used to seeing.
Oh, and I like this play here. He thought of discarding either the other Sedna, I guess he ended up top decking, or he chose to discard the Kyutere. I think he discarded the Kyutere. What? Or did he have another one in his hand?
I don't think I saw another one.
I don't think so, yeah. I mean, we've seen 2 already, and he's only playing 3, so...
That's pretty insane he's going to discard this here. But I guess he really needs to get his Piana to resolve, so he chose that instead.
Oh, he had the third one in hand, okay.
Okay.
So let's see what he's trying... What can he possibly add here? Oh, I think that is Finessa being added to his hand. Just recycles grade 3s from his drop zone, which, again, is very useful given how many he's gone through so far. But the other thing to look at here is Manlong is literally all out of resources. He's got no soul. He's got the one Steza in hand, Spiana in hand to countercharge with, which we're going to see come down, recycle his Anj. But he can bounce 3, but if he wants to get the full value out of Anj, he's going to have to either call his last card down from hand or bounce one of Any's rear guards.
And being able to bounce one of the rear guards means that he'll be able to reset with them next turn. Again, being able to use their abilities to filter the deck even further. So it's a tough decision here.
But at the same time, I think Any's also in a very precarious position. He's got 5 damage, and because he has to discard 3 to reach down the Overlord, I think he's only on like 4 or 5 cards in hand, and even 4 attacks from Manlong is going to be quite difficult to guard.
Yeah, it will. Especially that the Q today is currently sitting at 33, 41?
Yeah, because of the force markers. This is what we're saying, Anj is going to get those force markers. It's just going to put Any into a position where he can't guard. 3 cards left in hand, at least 2 more attacks coming in. And we see that he calls the PG to boost, and he chooses not to bounce it. That's real. So, to me, that says that Manlong's just going to try and win the game this turn. Forced to Vanguard. Really just going to push the game right here.
The reason why he didn't bounce the PG is because Anj can only bounce normal units. So he plays that card just for the extra 5k power to potentially rip through the hand of Any. So Manlong decided this is his final turn. That's where he's aiming for at this juncture.
Yeah, interesting that he just shows, I don't need to PG your overall swing because I'm going to win the game this turn. Seria coming down there for Manlong. It's not the full attack extender, but it's filtering. And then he's going to PG attack with 1 card left in hand. It's a PG, 1 card. So, crit. Oh, that's not good. Heal doesn't go off, but now, Any, what can you guard this 40k? Nope. 2 damage coming in, no heal. That's going to be the end of the game. Just goes to show you that even though Any had the perfect setup, the 15k from the Calamity Tower, the heat shot booster, maybe if he had the Decat, Manlong would have had to give an extra card to guard that to PG that last Vanguard swing. Maybe would have been unable to play the game, but yeah, that just goes to show you that Anj, Bermuda, Highlander, it can go through so many cards, so many pieces. Even if it drops all those cards from hand, it can just find a way to as long as it has Kutere, you can search for Steza, you can countercharge, you can search for X, you can get extra bodies on the board, you can search for Lees a lot to make 3 attackers if you need it. As long as Kutere is in rotation, you can play the game. It just goes to show you how strong and resilient that deck is.
I think you're onto something with the card, because we just saw at the end of his turn with triple Vanguard swing, he had only 2 cards left in hand, which means if he had the card, that PG had the force to discard another card, leaving him with only 1 card left in hand. If he then would just decided to attack with the Vanguard face, he could swing with the 23k, that go for face, go to 4 damage, and then swing with the other Igni Road with double critical. And with that one card, I believe that was either a grade 3, a PG, or a 5k shield. So he couldn't guard it anymore if the cut was activated on the Vanguard. So that's actually an interesting card that could have changed the tide of this game.
Yep.
Yeah, he would have had the 23k Sakura and the burnout. Sorry, not the burnout. The berserk, followed with the 25 or 30k from the Igni Road with the crit. It definitely would have been lethal. But yeah, that's gonna be it for the top 8 round. Congratulations to Manlong squeezing out that narrow victory. Like clutching a victory from the jaws of defeat there against any. Well played to both players. But yep, Manlong is gonna be moving on to the top 4 game. So we're going to cut to a quick break while the players get ready for the top 4, and we'll be back after a very short intermission. See you all very soon. Welcome back, boys and girls, to the Bushiroad Rumble Online 2022 EU Tournament for V-Premium. We are now into the top 8. There's only 2 rounds between now and the end of the tournament, but of course, the 4 players in the top 4 still have everything to play for. We've just witnessed a heated match between Ennie's Overlord versus Manlong's Bermuda Orange Highlander variant, and I think moving into the top 4, there's still a lot more on our plate. What do you think, guys?
I think the games are going to be high octane, high energy. The players are going to be playing for all the Grables today. It's going to be great.
I'm very excited for this matchup. We've seen both decks in action, what we're going to see on the stream here, so I'm somewhat familiar with what we're going to see, but you never know, and this could be very explosive.
Yep, absolutely. So before we get into the game, let's take another look at the updated bracket in the top 4 and see who has made it to the next stage. So, as you can see here, Manlong has beaten Ennie, as we just saw on stream, to make it through the semi-finals, where he'll be playing against Toby TCG, playing Astral Poets. Then on the other side, we have Full Metal Paladin 21 on Revengers, who beat Double T and Isabel. So, unfortunately, no hashtag Isabel sweep today, but Full Metal Paladin 21 will be playing against Suo on Thavas, who was victorious against his teammate Andre Lee. So it's going to be well done to these 4 players, but as you say, there is still everything on the table. So I think we're going to move into the game of Full Metal Paladin 21 versus Suo on the other side of the bracket, and let's just jump straight into the deck lists. So Full Metal Paladin on Revengers, like you said, we saw a lot of this yesterday. I think it was actually almost the same list. I think it's pretty straightforward. You just play 4 copies of every single Revenger, and yeah, you just go for it, right?
That's right. There is it's stock. Everybody know what it does by now. For everybody who's been here, this is currently your top 4 contender. Let's get on to the other deck list played by WCC Suo.
Yep, so here is, as you said, discussed Thavas. It's slightly different to those we saw yesterday. There's no Adelaides here. It's a bit more traditionalist, let's use that word. He's got his Narissas, he's got his Baragioses. He's not playing too many tech options. I find it interesting that he's only down to 2 Wheel Assault. As we discussed the other day, it means that you don't have the ability to go full combo. 1 Wheel Assault is 1 extender, which is nice, but it's not the ideal line. He doesn't have Penguin, so he's going to be getting damage denied as well. But something interesting to know about the dynamics of these 2 decks is that just like what we saw before with Highlander Orange versus Overlord, we have Revenger, which is this multi-Vanguard attack, big stick, orc smash at your opponent's face, versus Thavas, which is maybe the more sort of big brain, subterfuge, trying to do little bits here and there sort of deck. And I think that's a really interesting dynamic to see clash.
Yeah, and the interesting thing about this dynamic, specifically between these 2 decks, is that we already seen it being played out in day 1, but that's just one instance. This could go the complete opposite way today, so I'm very curious how these decks are gonna face up against each other in this, you could say quote-unquote rematch, although it's different pilots in some aspects, but I'm very curious of how this is gonna go.
Yep, alright, so in that case, I think we've said all there is to really say about these decks, so let's just jump straight into the game. So we have Suo on the left playing Aquaforce and Paladin on the right playing... Suo on the right playing Aquaforce and Paladin on the left playing Revengers. So Full Metal Paladin 21 will get to go first, taking the ride, and again, this is a matchup where going first or second really doesn't affect anything because both decks will just, they will just go for it going first. The only different, I think the main factor both players are going to be playing around here is whether or not Steven wants to damage Knife Full Metal Paladin to keep him from being on 4 damage, to keep him from doing the full quad Vanguard combo.
I think that's one of the most important things in this top 8 right now. These four players in the semifinals, it's whether or not they want to utilize damage denial. It's not been something we've been experiencing a whole lot this weekend, but if you're going to be playing against players who are going to drive crits like that, you might not see a lot of it, but we will hope to see it sometime soon in this match.
Yeah, so they're getting off to an early lead. We did see Full Metal Paladin. He didn't write the perfect grade 1, but he has written the Rakea grade 2, which is nice. And 2 damage is close enough. Like there's no self damages in V format, but at this rate, Suo might be tempted to say, "Well, I'm just gonna push you to 4 and then just go for it."
We do see the Raging Fall coming in his hand here for Full Metal Paladin, so that means he's already looking pretty good for next turn if he can find a normal Raging Form Dragon, which shouldn't be too hard, but you never know with this deck.
So Suo there calling down a crit trigger to use Dennis's effect. I think that tells me a lot about the quality of cards in his hand. Finding another trigger is definitely not ideal.
You hate to see it.
That back row of cards doesn't look great, even with the drop zone there.
Yeah, I think, but based on this, I'm happy. I'm okay for him to go full aggro and to be like, well, I'm losing a lot of triggers. I just need to push now. I just need to get as much of a tempo lead as I can. And yeah, Full Metal Paladin, interestingly choosing to guard there, willing to just fully damage Knight himself, knowing despite the fact he's riding grade 3 this turn. Could it be that he doesn't have a Raging Form? Yeah, he first rides the Raging Fall.
Yeah, as we discussed yesterday, actually, before the top 8 finale, is that this archetype does live and breathe by Raging Form first. It has to have it. If it doesn't have it first, it is a bad time for him. And this is one of the situations. It can still play the game, right? It can still, lock some of its rear guards. It can get some plays off. But it really needs the extra pressure that a Raging Form gives.
I mean, the upside is to Reverse here, is that Reverse can play into a Heal Guardian. If he commits a board, he can lock his back row, give the front row plus 15k power, thus negating essentially the plus 10k power that a Heal Guardian provides. And you can reset the Vanguard for no counterblast cost, which can at least give him something while his opponent is still at grade 2. So it's not the ideal situation, but it's workable.
Yeah, of course, discarding 3 is very, very dangerous, especially when you're missing a lot of your key pieces. And I just want to point out here that he's chosen to put Force 1 on the rear guard, which is not what we usually see. When we see Revenges being played, it's almost always stack Force on Vanguard. Vanguard is restanding 2 or 3 times and just force you out of the game from that way. But given that he's going Marker for Claudus here, he's trying to play a grindier, longer game. Just try and match Aqua Force with his board state bit for bit, and he's gonna lose a lot of his pieces if he tries to commit here because, of course, Thavas has Retire, Thavas has more attacks. I'm curious to see how he's gonna be able to claw his way back from this situation.
Oh yeah, go ahead, Jay.
Oh no, I mean, I was about to point out, I think he just wants to go for a standard 3 attack pass here. Oh, I really like this. So what he's probably going to aim to do here is at end of turn, he's going to be using the Klaus. Oh, actually, never mind. I said nothing. I said nothing. He's doing exactly every opposite thing that I think he's going to be doing. Never mind. Go ahead, Eric.
He just wants to swing cards sideways. But no, what I think the reason why he puts his Force Mark on the rear guard is that maybe he doesn't think he's going to see his Raging Forms anytime soon, and probably doesn't want to force everything on a Vanguard. Does maybe want to spread the value of the guard potential over all his units instead of just centering it on one big number in the center column. Maybe that's his approach. But depending on what cards we're going to see in the next couple of draws and drive checks, this could either pay off for him or this could backfire. Because if he goes into a Raging Form later in the game and he hasn't stacked the Force Mark on the Vanguard Circle, that could equate to a lot of shield value that Suo doesn't have to waste.
He's discarding 3 crit triggers to restand. He's giving up 45k shield to just go for it. This is a greedy play. Suo hitting the defensive there, plus the heal guard, he puts him onto 30k base with the 15k shield. I think this is no pass, right? This is what, 45k to Full Metal Paladin's 23 with 2 drive? No, it's plus 15 actually. It's 38 with 2 drive. So yeah, this is a massive tempo neg swing for Full Metal Paladin here. Like, sure, his rearguard columns are big, but there's not a lot of pressure coming down.
I think if you're in Suo's position, I think when he first called those triggers and checked the top card as a trigger, probably that would have affected him in some position. But seeing this turn from Full Metal Paladin, I think he suddenly feels a lot more comfortable with seeing those criticals being discarded, no Raging Form coming down, the Force Mark on the rearguard circle instead of the usual Vanguard circle. I think Suo feels more comfortable moving forward in his Great Free turn, especially if he can see the pieces he's going to need, like his Pursuit Assault, like his Tavis de Lambros, and all the combo plays we're used to from Tavis. As Full Metal Paladin has a vulnerable position where he's finding himself in now.
I would like to point out is that due to the case of the Dennis hitting a good trigger, he's driving a good trigger, and now revealing 2 heal triggers, and now guarding with another one, a lot of triggers out of the deck at the moment.
Of course, there's still a lot of cards in Suo's hand, like a lot of cards. Meanwhile, Full Metal Paladin is barely broken even on this turn.
I think his hand is actually kind of healthy, because he drove 2, discarded 3, he gained 2 more. So yeah, he is like down 1, but it's not that bad, I think.
Yeah, he's been able to recover from the Claudices in the back row that we just saw him resolve. Mm-hmm. The question is, Suo's only at 3 damage. I think if you're gonna like make a play where you lock your back row and just fully commit to the restand like that, I would have either considered Force 2 on Vanguard, or maybe just like not call as much. Just like drop like 1 or 2 bodies and just go for it from there.
Okay, I see what you mean.
Yeah, because again, like Suo's only on 3 damage. Like he only needs 1 or 2 to like get his engine off. We see Full Metal Paladin has like what, I think 9 cards in hand. It's a decent number, but it's not that much in perspective of things. Pursuit Assault coming down. Is he going to find his pieces? We know he has at least 1 Coral Assault, which is definitely going to put in some work here. Going to use Tavas to arrest the Pursuit Assault to retire one of Full Metal Paladin's rearguards. And then what can he do here?
Alright, so retire the Dorant.
Ooh, Terrific Assault. That's a good card here.
I think if you're going to make a Terrific Call, I would like to see it on the Axel Circle so that it hits 19, which is good numbers, as opposed to being in the normal rearguard, where it's only going to be 14, which is only 5k shield from Full Metal Paladin's simple intercept. Bragios comes down, so this isn't the full combo turn. He's like Suo's not going to be able to like put on as much of an offense against Full Metal Paladin 21 as I think he would have liked. He does get the plus 5k to the column from Lambros because Full Metal Paladin's on grade 3, but this is what, like 14 from the Terrific Coil, 19 on the restand plus boost. It's going to be 14 plus 13 from the Pursuit Bragios column, which is 27. Restand will be 37 after the Lambros. Lambros itself is going to be 25 with the triple drive, and then finally Coral Assault is going to come in for 29. Like, these are like fairly decent numbers, but 1 or 2 defensives from Full Metal Paladin just completely turns off Suo's turns, and we know that he's probably going to take a lot of damage here because he's only on 2. So Terrific Coil comes in for 14. And like I said, just the 1 step comes down and then boosts for 19. There's only 10k shield. If I was Full Metal Paladin, I'd consider taking this. Because if you hit a defensive, it just makes the rest of the turn so much easier to guard.
Yeah, it depends on what the rest of his hand is, because we already saw him discard multiple triggers, and we saw he draw into a lot of blind cards. So we don't know if he draws into just raw shield value, or like in more triggers, or potentially into his Raging Form Dragons, which don't really do anything in this situation. So it's hard to tell what he's looking at this point.
Yeah, 27k coming in from the Pursuit Assault column. We saw Full Metal Paladin did try check a crit, so that's 1 card to guard this. And I think he's going to do it. He's going to use the heal. It's the same thing, 1 card guard. And now Lambros coming in. So this is probably the most threatening attack, and I would consider PGing this here, or no guarding, but I think both are reasonable options. But yeah, that is a 30k Lambros with drive from the Thavas.
I would take a no guard here personally, as we already see multiple crits out of the deck, so it's less likely to see a crit here.
You're right. No, all blanks coming in. Full Metal Paladin takes the damage. Still no defensive. Not ideal. So these attacks now a little bit hard to guard. This is now a 37k on the Pursuit Assault because Lambros gives 10 to the column. So now this is a lot of shield that I guess he might just take it again. Go to 5 and then he has full Raging access. Goes to 5. Raging Fall is now fully online. And now finally a 29k Coral. This is not easy to guard, but not impossible. He's going to PG this column instead. Okay, I respect that. You know, take the guard while you can. You know, it's already going to be 2 cards. You might as well make it an easy 2 cards. Discards the other Raging Fall. So he's probably not going to rewrite here, I think. The only problem is that, again, you know, with Coral Soul end of turn, with the triple drive, with the end of turn axe out from rewriting Thavas, Suo has a lot of cards in hand. Drawing from the Pursuit Assault, drawing from Tidal, drawing from Lambros. You know, that's a lot of... He does have the Raging Form rewrite. Okay, Force to Vanguard. This is... His game plan is now finally online. Counterblast 1 for the Raging Form. This might be where Full Metal Paladin tries to push the game. Of course, whether or not he can do that with all those cards in Suo's hand is a whole nother story.
It's interesting that he discarded the Raging Fall, because either that means he has another copy in hand, or he has drawn into another normal Raging Form Dragon here. Or maybe he's betting on drawing it during the drive checks.
I mean, he did discard a Raging Fall Dragon, so the possibility of him having another Raging Form or Raging Fall is kind of telegraphed here. I do feel he probably has another copy in hand, but he just wanted to make sure that he didn't try to overextend with it, because he can't go Raging Fall into Raging Fall anyway. That doesn't work, so I think he can do a Raging Form, Raging Form, Raging Fall. Him getting the grade 1, because he can Soul Blast too, because he has the grade 1 on the board that allows him to call another rearguard. So calling the Claudus here is fine, because then he can get Dodint, and then Dodint can draw a couple cards again, and also give him a 20k beater, which is
I wouldn't
nice.
commit that hard to the resources, because if he's on Raging Form right now, he has no way of locking his rearguards normally. So he's going to need to Counterblast 3 if he goes into Raging Fall. And as you can see, he only has 3 open Counterblast. So I think even double Raging Form is out of the question, because to double Raging Form, you need to Counterblast for the second Raging Forms on place, exactly. So you see, he's going to use the Rakea in grade 1. I think he's going to use whatever he can to like get as much plus as he can for now, just so that he can, like we say, you know, Raging Form into Raging Fall into the restand and go for it. But so I think, yeah, but definitely he probably has to set another Raging Fall in hand. The question is, does he have all the resources to make value out of it? Oh, he is going to Counterblast 1 for the Dorint, though. So that tells me that he might not be going into another Raging Fall. This might just be a triple Raging Form turn.
Depending on how he draws his card, this is probably his best bet, because he just wants to multi-attack as many possible. And that might explain why he put it on the rearguard circle, as he's just going to call a new rearguard every single rewrite to that circle to just get maximum value out of those attacks coming out of Revengers here.
Yeah, we'll see whether or not he can really remake the full board here. Like, it is possible, but without, I think, the Raging Fall's drive check pressure, it's going to be really difficult for him to, especially like saying, you know, what you said earlier, by putting that first force mark on the rearguard circle, this Raging Form is not exactly what you'd call high pressure.
No, it isn't, but the rearguards do become a whole lot more destructive, though. But he's not gonna, like, remove all of them at once, I think. He probably just use at least one of them. If it happens to get, like, a crit trigger, it still swings for 40, double crit. He still needs the guard van. So either the rearguard can close out the game, or the Vanguard can close out the game. You can contemplate how he's gonna do that.
Yeah, so this is currently a 38k column coming in at Suo's Vanguard. He's going to take the damage, no defensive. Narissa comes down. That's a good initial damage. So this is the one without any on-hit effect, so he's willing to guard this. PG the Vanguard, because now it has the on-hit effect from the back row. Drive checks. Heal does go off. That's very nice. Very much appreciated. Power to the rearguard that can still attack. I like this a lot. And second check. Blank. That's not the end of the world. You know, a crit would have been nice here because Suo's on 4. And then a crit here means that Suo can't no-guard the rearguard either. But we are going to see Raging Form come down. Yep.
And since he's still on 4 damage, he can choose to either give Force Marker to his Van, which I would expect him to do so, or he could possibly give it to the rear guard and make it a 28k or 30k attacker, if he so chooses.
Yep, he's going to go Force the Van, which I do like. Search for a third body, so now he can Raging Form once more after this.
So let's see what he goes for. He is going to go for the grade 1. Alright.
Yep, he's going for Rinnel. Again, it has a little bit of on-hit pressure. And any triggers he finds to put powers onto that Rinnel can maybe help push Suo to 5, maybe even 6. But again, Suo has a really healthy grip of cards. I don't see him dying to this anytime soon.
So he's going to use Rinna's skill that's currently in the drop zone, make him retire one. Of course, he's going to get rid of the critical trigger. It's not going to be much for him. So that's 18.
So this is the only thing that I don't like about the triple Raging Form line, is that Raging Form goes off at the end of battle. So Full Metal Paladin, when I attack with this column here, yep, he does. So this is a 33k rearguard column, but the problem is that any drive checks he gets from his second Vanguard swing now will be wasted because he's going to retire all of his rearguards and then has to rewrite over his Vanguard. So that's going to be difficult here. So they're getting a nice defensive, does help a lot. PG's the Vanguard swing one more time. Crit coming in, and you see, like I said, this crit is now completely wasted. So does Full Metal Paladin have one more grade 3 to ride?
It seems like he does.
So he went from no Raging Forms in hand probably into free, or maybe Full Metal Paladin just didn't want to use this last turn. Maybe he just saved this off.
I love this.
Yep, putting onto the rear because he has one more counterblast that he can call off of Raging Forms on place to get that one last piece of extra extension. So now any triggers he gets on this Vanguard swing can be put onto the rear guard. But the question is, does Suo have enough to guard everything here? Like, splitting the force markers I think is a really good idea, because now that Suo's getting a little bit low on hand, you can maybe say, okay, well now you need to guard both these attacks and they're a little bit harder to guard.
Also, with all the extra deck filtering that's happening right now with Raging Form, there's increasing chance here to hit more and more triggers, because most of the drive checks were relatively empty. We see only like half of them were triggers, half of them were empty, and with 3 extra cards filtered this turn, that's the good odds for a Full Metal Paladin here.
So this is just 33. Do we have the third PG from Suo? Is he going to try and hard guards and take a risk? He is on 22, so there's the third PG. Amazing.
He said no.
That's another PG.
So we saw there, Suo, calling 2 crits onto the board early, drive chain crit early. I think he only drive checked one of those draw PGs, so he just had a lot of triggers in hand naturally being clogged up. So the fact that he was still able to make a board is really impressive.
Yes. So
So
he was
this
like,
is a
oh.
40k column. It's a little bit short. He needs 5k more. Intercept with terrific coil.
Hey,
I mean, that's one of his best beat sticks. Yeah, he's gonna have to. But yeah, Suo does survive this turn. And I think that puts him now in a really good position. He only has 1 or 2 soul, so he can't go too heavy with Pursuit Assault and Lambros. But as long as he can make a board, I think he's more than in a good position here. Reride for the third Axel, so that Pursuit Assault is now going to be 24 base. That's hitting numbers, plus the boost from Baragios makes it 37. I think Full Metal Paladin might be staring down the barrel of the gun here.
I mean, he does have a good grip, and he's at 4 damage, so he can take 1. If he gets a defensive, that's going to be very nice. So I don't think this is a very obvious conclusion to this turn. This could still go either way, depending on what Suo is going to put on the board, what that first damage is going to be, and what the total shield value of Full Metal Paladin is going to have here.
And one thing to note about this situation too as well is that both of their decks are looking kind of low, but the upside for Suo is that since he have access to Nikki every single turn, the chances of him decking out is, it's a little less likely, because he could always choose to just not send any of his grade 3s back if he doesn't want to.
Yeah, we'll see I think if Suo has a second Pursuit Assault here, this will really break open the game.
Oh,
double Coral's good as well. Double Coral's good as well.
And a wheel.
And a wheel. And another Nikki. Oh, boy.
So the combo here, for people who might not understand what Wheel Assault is going to be good for, what he's going to do is, when he restands the Pursuit column with the Lambros, he's not going to boost the Pursuit. Instead, he's going to use the Wheel to move the standing Baragios onto the front row Axel circle, swapping it with the Nikki, because Lambros will give it +5, so it's going to be an 13k base, 18 on the Axel circle, which does still hit for 10k shield from Full Metal Paladin side.
I have a question for you guys. What do you think of his placement with the Nikki on a single lane and both corals on the Axels?
I think it's fine because he's basically saying, like Nikki on the Axel circle is only 13, which is quite easy to guard. So by putting the corals onto the Axel, it puts them onto 29, which is now 20k shield as opposed to 15k shield. Coral on the on the column rearguard circle would only be 24, which is 15k shield, and he's just trying to rip as many cards out of Full Metal Paladin's hand as possible. Plus, any triggers can still go to the Nikki, which is going to be 18, which is now 10k to guard as opposed to 5k to guard. So I'm okay with this line.
I think he needs to probably, in terms of taking damage, he's currently on 4. He can kind of choose to take one. He's contemplating whether or not he wants to guard everything first before trying to take a damage. I think I just counted maybe like 10 triggers to 11 triggers out of the deck, I think.
Yeah, I think he only has 2 heals, 1 draw, and I think 2 crits left.
Yeah. So Full Metal Paladin 21 does have 10 cards in hand, which is quite a lot, but, again, when these attacks are asking for like 15, 20, 25k shield at a time, like, we might see that whittle very, very quickly. And sure, he can take 1, but, we have at least, 6, 7, 8 attacks coming in this turn? And it's going to be interesting to see, like, how we can afford to guard this. Like, and again, any triggers onto the Nikki is going to make it even harder. So, like I said, there's the 5k shield from the Axel Nikki. This is now 37, which is, it's going to be 25k shield from Full Metal Paladin. So I think if you're going to take one, this is the one you take, because taking damage and getting a defensive here makes the rest of the attacks much easier to guard.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
There it is. There's the defensive.
That's very important here.
Now everything becomes a 25k shield now, so this is going to be really easy to deal with from now on.
So now that you've seen Full Metal Paladin get defensive, what I could see Suo trying to do is, instead of wheel assaulting the Baragios, like, onto the Axel, he might just wheel assault the Nikkis instead, just to get a bit of extra power there, because this is now a 23k Vanguard. Like, a lot of these attacks are now just 10 to 15k to pass. There's a trigger coming in. He could put it onto the Pursuit Assault. I think would be a smart idea here, because that column is now big enough that Full Metal Paladin needs to have another PG to guard it, because it's currently sitting at 47, because it was 37 the last time and now plus 10k from the Lambros. So heal to the Pursuit Assault, making it 57, might just make it unguardable as far as Full Metal Paladin's concerned. Gets a blank. I think the power went onto the Nikki there,
yeah.
Which, so he's gonna use Wheel Assault to move that Nikki onto the Axel. So instead of using Bragios, he's gonna keep Bragios to boost the Pursuit Assault for big numbers. But now this is a 23k, which is again asking for 5k shield. It's a small poke, which I'm not sure makes a grand difference in the makes a difference in the grand scheme of things. He's still only 10 to 15k shield, a big shield value coming in there from Full Metal Paladin 21. That tells me a lot about his hand. So now this is, like you said, the 47k from the Pursuit Assault. Does Full Metal Paladin have the other PG for this?
I think I saw him drive like a PG a couple turns ago, so he might have it, but he's contemplating whether or not he has enough resources to go into his following turn.
I personally don't like that he attacks with Pursuit Assaults now already, because the Coral Assault's already at full power. So if he, for some reason, Miracle Heals here, those Coral Assaults would suddenly mean nothing anymore.
Yeah, that's right, but we're seeing Full Metal Paladin 21 guard a lot with huge amounts of shield, so maybe this means that he's got the rest of his heals and then he's just like, no more heals in the deck. But that's going to be it for So. He's going to end the turn, draw a card from the Coral Assaults, and then draw from the remaking a new Axel. It's, he's got, again, decent amount of cards, but not a huge amount, and the heal coming in is good because it puts him onto 4 as opposed to 5, but worst case scenario, Full Metal Paladin has 2, 3 cards in hand. He could make a full board, draw for turn, make a full board, and still get a restand here. It's very possible.
That's right. That's one of the scariest things when you're talking about Revengers is that they need just as much as resources sometimes to get a lot of their combo pieces off. But there's moments where if you're playing an archetype like Revengers, just one card superior calls another, and you just get a whole chain going.
Yeah, I think it's worth mentioning that with only 1 counterblast and 3 cards in hand, I think Full Metal Paladin doesn't have access to a lot of his combos, because Either he calls down the 3 units, attacks with Vanguard, drive checks a grade 3, and then rewrites that, or one of those 3 cards in hand is his 4th copy of Raging Fall. He rewrites Raging Fall, calls down the last 2 cards in hand, locks them both to reduce the counterblast cost of Raging Fall's restand, but then he doesn't have 3 cards in hand to discard for the restand unless he hits a draw trigger. So, again, all of his plays here are reliant on hitting either a draw trigger or drive checking another grade 3. And if I'm in his shoes, I would not feel confident about that.
So right now he's currently counting some of his triggers here, making sure that he doesn't lose a whole lot. He's contemplating how he wants to go about this turn. He does, a lot of Revenger pieces are currently gone.
I think he's only got 1 grade 3 left in the deck, because we know that he rewrote Raging Fall last time, so there's 1 win Soul. So I think all 4 Raging Forms are out, and then 2 out of his 4 Raging Falls are also out. So yeah, I think if I'm in Full Metal Paladin's shoes here, my goal is to just call down 3 bodies, swing, 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 and just pray that I drive check the last Raging Fall.
Agree. A hard agree here. So 4 grade 3s are gone.
And there's no grade 3s in the damage zone.
And there's 1 on Van, so that's 5. So there's possibly 3 more in deck. Just trying to think whether or not he'll hit it.
I mean, 3 grade 3s in that small deck, that's actually pretty doable. Like, there's a big chance that he's gonna hit one of those into a Oh!
He has to call it just to get the 3 bodies to retire. That is painful.
So he's thinking whether or not. So now that comes down to 2.
There's the Rinnal. It's at least a number.
Oh, wow. So exactly 3 Revengers. Oh, okay. So I am... Okay, so this is maybe a bit awkward for me. But I possibly would have liked it if he had called Rinnal and the other grade 1 in its own column for 16. And then
so that it at least
23.
asks for 5k shield. I think that's good. I like that more as well. I think here he's... Like, especially when you know that Su only has, like, what? 5, 6 cards in hand? Like, every single 5k you can rip out could make the world of difference.
That's not a grade 3.
And a critical trigger!
But I think Suo no guarded this.
He did.
So this I think is he out of heals? Oh, we've seen him drive check 1 and he guarded with 2 earlier.
I think he has 1 left.
I think he has like literally 1 left.
Oh boy, this is it. It all comes down to this. Can you get that miracle 6th heal?
That's not a heal.
Narissa. And...
Oh,
it's not a heal. That is it. Wow, Full Metal Paladin. Once again, snatching victory from the jaws of defeat. It's, yeah, he had the last one in hand. Oh, man. And I think, yeah, he had, what, like, 25, 35, 45, 50k shield. It puts him on 63k. 63k to Full Metal Paladin's 41 is... Yeah, it would have been 2 to pass, which... Again, Full Metal Paladin didn't break the 2 to pass, but arguably you still got a Pursuit Assault on the board. You still have a Wheel Slot. You still have 2 Nickies. Maybe it was worth just dropping everything and just going for it.
I think what the reason is why I went for display is that if you count all the cards, I think it was less likely that there would be a critical than a grade 3 in a drive check, because I think there were less criticals left in the deck than grade 3s at that point. Right,
yeah, he couldn't count in the cards. That's very relevant. I guess we should have asked for that information, but yeah, that would make a reason, because then you're holding onto all that shield so that you can guard the rewrite. But then my counter argument then is that if you only have enough shield to 2 to pass the Vanguard swing, when they rewrite and get a force marker, that's going to turn into a 1 to pass, which is arguably even more risky. So, like, if in my opinion, there's like, if he hits it, he hits it. Like, it's kind of a lose-lose situation almost.
But you could say it with critical trigger as well. If he hits it, he hits it.
True. But yeah, that was a really close game there. We see both players like, down to the wire, running on fumes, both with virtually no resources left, and still really barely like managing to hold on. I think that was really well played there. Like, they built their boards in a way that meant that, okay, well, instead of like going wide and trying to push like shield here and there, they're just going to all in on this column and just like try and squeeze their opponent for as much as they can, as opposed to going for an outright win the game.
I mean, both of them are playing on fumes there. And that's kind of one of the reoccurring themes of people who play really well in finalist situations like this. Like, all of them are really good competitors. Like, even into yesterday in the last final rounds, it was just all down to the wire as well. Both of them playing, well, if you got it, you got it. And that's basically how it came down to in a lot of these situations. And good to see another one pull down to that one as well. It was really, really well played from both.
Yeah, absolutely. But that's going to be it. We're going to see Full Metal Paladin 21 playing Revengers move on to the finals. So who's he going to be playing against in the grand finals? Well, find out after the break. Alright, here we are. Welcome back to the end of Bushiroad Rumble Online 2022's Europe Tournament for V-Premium. Fellas, we are at the grind finals. And can you believe it? There's no Gurgit in the finals.
I can believe it. I can believe that we've come this long journey of 10 plus hours watching Cardfight Vanguard content and come out on the end of it not seeing a single golden boy here in the finals with us. Yeah. So yeah.
I mean, for one paladin, we got another one because we have a different type of shade of paladin in the finals, which is kind of spicy.
Yeah, that's right. So, without further ado, let's take a look at the bracket, the final bracket, and just see who we have in the grand finals. There we go. We have Manlong taking his clean sweep with Bermuda Orange, beating out Toby TC in the top 4, taking on Full Metal Paladin 21 in the finals, who, as we just watched, narrowly squeezed out that win against Svo. So, Manlong on Highlander Orange versus Full Metal Paladin 21 on Revengers, fighting for the title of BRO champion. And again, pointing out there, Toby TCG versus Stephen Lee in the 3rd, 4th playoff, yet another WCC team kill. So at the end of all this, WCC only goes home with 1 medal for their cabinet.
Oof. I mean, they both did really well going into this. All the players did really well going into this. Any Leask, Full Metal Paladin, Doublet, WCC, Swo, Andre, Lee, all of them doing really well in their endeavors getting up to this top 8 slot.
Yep, exactly. But again, I think the players are ready, so we're just going to jump into a quick deck list again, show you one last time. I know you've seen, everyone at home has seen this deck list already today, but just another quick look. But you can see here, again, it's the quote-unquote Highlander version. So we have to be very careful with terminology here. It is an Orange deck, and it's the Highlander variant of Orange, which is very different to a Highlander deck splashing Orange. Because he's not playing any grade 4s, there's only 1 reindeer, but he's still playing the Highlander bottom end, just the consistency and a bit of reach. But yeah, you saw there, Orange just being able to plus really hard, bouncing a Kutere, searching for another Kutere, just plussing really hard and thinning his deck is what got him the win over Overlord. And of course, moving over, we just saw Full Metal Paladin 21's Revenger list take the win against
Aquaforce Davis?
Yep, my bad, sorry.
Yeah.
Blanking there for a moment. But yeah, it's again, we discussed here, all 3 games of topics have been, Freight Train meets Brick Wall almost. One person's trying to go as fast as possible, as hard as possible, and the other person's trying to actually play a game, do this, do that, playing 4D chess on another level, and we'll see if it works out this time. One last thing I actually only just noticed here is that Full Metal Paladin 21, only 3 heals in the deck. He's playing 9 crits.
I like it. See, crits are the power move. Heals are a little unnecessary. It's the future. 2023, BRO V-Premium. Nobody plays heals. Stop it.
I mean, I guess the argument is that if you drive check a heal on Raging Form, when you rewrite into the other Raging Form, you then can't counterblast onto call anymore. So
exactly.
Yeah, he's out here 3 parallel dimensions ahead of us. That's all I can say. But I think the players are ready. So without further ado, let's just get into the game.
Welcome everybody to the grand finals of BRO 2022, where we are going to be getting underway.
Ooh, Paladin is going first, it seems, or is Bermuda's Vanguard, because it looked like he had extra card in the field. Oh, it's Bermuda's Vanguard going first.
And as we said, Orange doesn't care about your opponent Vanguard being grade 3, and here's the problem now: Revenger, it doesn't gain you know, it doesn't. There's no quote unquote full power unlock from the opponent being grade 3 either. So I think this is a matchup where whoever goes first just has the advantage.
It depends on how far Manlong is gonna go, because if Manlong is gonna be very aggressive, Full Metal Paladin could just say, I'm gonna put myself at 4, so my rewrites are gonna be at full power, because that's probably one of the reasons why Full Metal Paladin didn't do that in the previous game, because he wasn't at 4 damage, so he couldn't extend into his superior calls with Raging Form Dragon. So it comes down to how aggressive Manlong is gonna take this game on his first grade 3 turn.
And it's also going to be dependent on how Full Metal Paladin is going to be taking the grade 2 turn, because if he does have a couple copies of Reno, if he does have Dorins or Claudius, he can get some columns going.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? Like, you want to be on 4 damage as the Revenger player so that you can do full combo when you're at grade 3. But if the damage is too far apart, like, if you're on 4 damage, your opponent's on only 1 or 2, that's like that's a really low tempo position you'll find yourself in. So possibly Full Metal Paladin might want to just commit some aggro against Manlong here, knowing that, he's probably going to get aggroed back and be on 4 damage, just so that Manlong's on like 3 or 4, which then makes the Raging Form restands that little bit more threatening.
And we see that early crit coming down here, which might be unfortunate for Full Metal Paladin, but at the same time, depending on how aggressive he's going to make his grade 2 turn, that could actually also be favored.
So he's got the marker on the ride.
So he's gonna ride into Tartu, which is a good ride target, as it steals a Vanguard Circle skill, which allows him to superior call onto the board, deck filter a little bit, and get the on hit pressure as well, because Manlong did commit the card to the field, so the Riddle can potentially pop the rear guard.
Oh, it will have to, actually, since it does retire at the end of turn, so he'll be able to resolve the skill.
We'll see whether or not he actually wants to commit to that, though. Again, like, if I'm in Full Metal Paladin's shoes here, I'm going to think about, like, making just extra bodies and just going for it. Yeah, there's the brand win.
Exactly.
But can he find a way to boost to make it hit? Is it going to be relevant anyway? He misses the top search. So either that's really unfortunate, or he already has all the Raging Forms he needs.
Or he probably ended up opening with another Raging Fall again. And that would be another scary outcome here. Putting it in 3. Who do you guys feel is favored in this matchup?
I would say definitely Bermuda, especially going first, because you have that whole turn of doing orange things to farm up that massive hand. Like, Manlong can easily resolve Q2A like 3 or 4 times during his grade 3 turn before Full Metal Paladin can even get to rewriting Vanguard. Of course, he does damage one of them, but it's Bermuda. It's not really the end of the world. He's playing 3. He gets the on hit from Rinal. It's useful for like finding some pieces, but I think if you're in the seat of Shadow Paladin here, you're not trying to play the out plus, like, out advantage game. You're trying to just whack them and beat them to death as soon as you possibly can.
Yeah, I do agree with Ben here that Bermuda is definitely more favored on the raw value side, because they can be more consistently explosive, because the only thing they need to see is Anj, and they can basically do most of their things because it's very consistent. Where the Raging Form Dragon needs to see his multiple copies of Raging Forms, needs to see his Revenger Rearguards to even do something to actually get his game plan going. And as we saw, Raging Form Dragon doesn't have a lot of options to reflood the deck with more cards so he can keep going into the stall game. Once those cards are out, those cards are out. Whereas in Color Green Triangle, they can reload the deck with all their copies over and over and over again to just extend this game as long as they feel comfortable with.
Yeah, worth mentioning here that Full Metal Paladin chose not to attack with this 16k column, despite it hitting, choosing instead to damage 9 Manlong, letting his Rinal get retired, and choosing not to Soul Blast 1 to pop that back row Sedna. So we'll see if that decision comes back to bite him in the long term.
I think he's probably in a situation where he probably doesn't want to get Tirawat, because I don't think Tirawat needs... It doesn't matter for Tirawat whether or not your opponent's on grade 3, like how we were discussing before. So you could possibly be playing around an aspect of him maybe biting the dust here, it getting like a double crit, and him having to guard with a whole bunch of extra cards from his hand. So him subduing some damage here gives him an angle that, hey, if I have to go to 4 damage at least, and you're at 2, it's better than you being at 1.
But what about not returning the Sedna? I feel like, unless you're conserving soul for something else important, like, I feel like there's no reason not to, right?
I will have to agree with you on that one. That one is a bit of a mystery to me. I think he's possibly playing around the fact of the grade 1 Revenger that allows you to call a grade 2 out of your drop zone. He's probably trying to save up enough soul for that skill so they can have more targets for his Raging Form to retire later.
Ah, okay, I think that's fair. The only concern here is that, by retiring that rear guard, it's another body that Manlong needs to commit to be able to get the bounces for Ange or for Tirua if he goes there.
Yeah.
But the Kutere finally comes down, and now begins the heavy plussing on Manlong's side of the table.
Yeah, that's right. And right now he already fulfills the condition for Ange. So he's possibly thinking of whether or not he wants to move up the Sedna or add another rearguard to it, maybe an Aqua possibly. If he finds like an Aqua here, he can bounce the Q-Today, place the Q-Today down again, get an extra search going, filter his deck a little bit more, and get some more additional pluses going.
Yep, there's the Aqua bouncing the Kutere. That's a play that we have seen many, many times, and I'm sure we're going to see a lot more of as the year goes on. He's going to filter. What is he going to look for here? So he's skipping over the Pearl Sister, finds another copy of Ange. So again, like we saw with the Kagero game on Manlong played earlier in top 8, he's going to look to outgrind here because, sure, Full Metal Paladin has a lot of plussing from all of his effects, and he does have Raging Form to keep going, but at the end of the day, Full Metal Paladin is going to be he's going to be committing more resources than Manlong will. Manlong is going to outplus him, out-survive, out-grind, and eventually just win a game, I think, that way. So we'll see how much damage from Manlong takes here. It takes the first one. That's goes up to 3. Is he going to want to be on 4 going into his grade 3 turn, or is he going to try and play a bit more defensively here? Because these are some really heavy attacks coming in from the Ange as well.
Yeah, I think this is a situation where he's possibly even aiming to maybe go to 5 if he needs to.
I wouldn't really feel very comfortable if he.
No, obviously not.
That's
Obviously,
very dangerous.
like obviously not. Like you're completely right here. But he is looking at it as an angle that he might want to try to go all in next turn to at least bleed as much of his cards out of his hand as possibly can.
I mean, knowing that he plays only 3 heals and maximize on crits, maybe that is somewhat of his initial game plan to just go for the high roll, put myself at 5 damage, and in the first grade 3 turn, just go ham and see crits.
Heal Guardian coming in from Full Metal Paladin 21, giving him plus 10k, guards the Kutere, and makes him 20 versus this Ange, which is 23. The Ange is searching for another Kutere into the rear guard, which is going to be a 33k body with a plussing.
Oh boy, I think this is one of the best cards currently in the format, to be honest, Q today.
Definitely. I think it's arguably one of the best cards currently in Vanguard altogether. The fact that it's not once per turn, so you can continue to spam it and just keep adding cards to your hand, whatever it is you want to search for, is just such a you just have access to your whole deck at any given moment.
Honestly, I wish they give every clan a card like this.
This would be like, oh, well, I will tutor for removal for your grade 1. Thank you. Thanks. Removal
No guard coming in from Full Metal Paladin. Oh no, he's resolving Kutere actually, searching for, I think it's Sedna. He finds it.
Yeah.
This makes sense, because he now removes all the duplicates from his deck, because he kept whiffing on the Sedna earlier, so now he can search anything he wants for the future Kutere he's gonna call.
And like I said, this is still 23 into 20, so it's still 5k to even one pass. And then he has to deal with the 33k Kutere afterwards. You've already burned a Heal Guardian. Like, do you consider burning a PG here, and then taking it, just no guarding the Kutere and hoping for no crits, go to 4 and just try and combo off?
I think you probably choose to maybe use a critical trigger to guard here for 2 to pass. It's a risky play, but I think that's like one of the angles you want to like slow down the bleeding a little bit. But it's a possibility due to all of the normal units that he's filtered throughout his deck already. Him not hitting at least a critical trigger here would be a wonder to me.
There's a draw.
There's one.
Yeah.
Power to rear and a blank. So yeah, only 1 damage. Full Metal Paladin will go to 4 very comfortably. Gets a defensive as well, which makes the Kutere only 15k to shield. That's exactly what he wants to see. So now probably this is where the trick comes down. Or attacking the rear guard. Interesting.
I can understand his line of thought here, because if he puts him at 5, if he assumed that Full Metal Paladin is going to take this, then a chance of him healing out of 4 is not really a situation going to happen. With 4, as we explained earlier, there's a possibility you heal accidentally to 3, and your whole combo basically breaks down mid-combo.
Yeah, there's also the possibility that if he just goes on 5, he can always just Raging Form into Raging Fall and go for it.
True.
Because he does have all of his damage face up.
Yeah, I like Eric's angle at it as well, since like going to 3 does shut off any other potential plays that he might want to go for. So I like it. It forces him to have to go into Raging Fall if he has it in his hand.
I think at the same time, though, this is an open decklist format. Your opponent only has 3 heals. The chance of them healing out of 4 is not as high as you'd think, maybe.
Yeah.
So he's going to counterblast onto Call here, finds himself a Claudus. Now again, this is very interesting because if he chooses to counterblast for that Claudus, he's not going to have the counterblast to use Raging Fall. So I think we're going to see here probably a double or triple Raging Form turn instead.
Oh, that'd be very dangerous here, because at any point in those drive checks, he happens to see a heal, he won't be able to resolve the skill anymore.
It looks like he's gonna go for the Colossus here.
I think the thing to be aware of as well is that Manlong's only on 2 damage, and even though he might be damage denied if he guards everything, I think he's going to want to guard them, is to A, stay on low damage, that the other attacks aren't going to be too threatening, and B, also increase the chance of Full Metal Paladin being able to heal out, because if Manlong takes much of damage, maybe he puts himself in a position where Full Metal Paladin can't heal. So I think he's definitely like playing around all of the possible everything that Full Metal Paladin can do here.
So he's contemplating whether he wants to place this Rinnel either on the Vanguard or on the rear. I think under wow, it's a very tough one, because if he tries to put it under Van, that's definitely going to get PG'd. If he tries to put it on the rear, it's only, I think, 20k shield, and it's more tempting to him to do something about it.
Yep.
So
Making another Claudus there.
So either using this to dig for more cards to get to his multiple rewrites, or he's just going for full aggressive and see if he either drive checks in the second or in the third and just go from there. Because you either need to commit it and just hope for it, or if you don't commit and you see it, you basically wasted a very strong aggressive potential here. And that's always the risk with Raging Form if you don't have the copies in your hand before you start attacking. Because now then you have to make the guess, am I going to see them? Am I not? Will I commit for it? And will I be punished if I commit my cards without seeing my rewrite copies?
So we see here he's going to start attacking with 21k column. You were right, by the way. He did. Full Metal Paladin did choose to save the soul from Rinnel to use on the Urakia instead to pull out that second Claudus. But now this column's going to be going in. It's going to be a full-on... It's only 31, which is not that much to guard. And Manlong has been guarding these so far. And no guard on the Vanguard swing. No crit comes down. Draw is useful. Pumps the Claudus a little bit further.
PG will always be nice for next turn. And an extra draw to potentially see a combo piece here.
Manlong damages one of his Tiruas. That is going to be useful. That's going to shut down part of Manlong's extension power. So Full Metal Paladin maybe has a little bit less to deal with. Re-rise into just Raging Fall. Okay, so no Raging Form coming in. So he's just going to end there. And because he's not on 5 damage and has no lock cards, he's not going to be able to get another restand after this. But I like this anyway, because it means that he now has 4 drive checks, all of which goes into the Claudus, all of which, are now going to be able to be utilized effectively. And Manlong there is going to, it looks like a 3-1 pass.
Let's see, 38, that's 1, 48, Sedna, double Sedna, 2 to pass.
2 to pass. So blank and another draw. So no crits coming in, but Full Metal Paladin now has a very healthy amount of hand, and that Claudus column gets ever bigger. So yeah, Manlong might just take this here, because he has a lot of cards in hand. He could easily guard this, but maybe he doesn't want to. Maybe he just wants the extra damage to extend with.
Because this does give him access to another Tirawa. He does lose 1 in damage already, but I think he has another copy in deck. Like, he has most of the copying combo pieces that he needs. He can still go for, like, Pearl of Sister lines off of the Q3. He still has a whole lot of extra plays here.
Yep, he takes the damage, goes up to 4, which is, I think, reasonable. He may want the counterblast to play the rest of the turn with. And as well, it puts him on 4. He can always heal down from this as well. If he guarded this and stayed on 3, he wouldn't be able to heal. So I think this is definitely shows he's definitely going for the long, grindy game here. The rewrite for another force marker, again, just hints even further to that.
So rewriting again into Ange, he's contemplating where he wants to place it, whether or not he's going to give the third one to the rearguard circle that already has two, or does he want to give it to his Vanguard to make it a little bit more pressure. It looks like he will be giving it to the rearguard column, making that one huge, because that could be a possible potato column or Pearl Assistant column.
Yeah, I think what he wants to do is, by making the rearguard column huge, he's going to force Full Metal Paladin to use all the PGs that we just saw him drive check on that massive rearguard, thus, risking maybe a 1 to pass or a 2 to pass or even a no guard on the Vanguard column, in which case, all of that deck failing we've just seen can now put crits on the Vanguard and still push Full Metal Paladin for lethal.
That's right.
So he's going to add Aqua with the Kutere here, and once again, Aqua Kutere is a line that we've seen I think more than enough times at this point in our lives, but Kutere just showing you why it's still one of the best cards in Bermuda Triangle.
Alright, so one of the reasons why is the fact, placing it is really good, and you got to reveal your declare card name, any card name that's in your deck, try to be as accurate as you possibly can. You can also use the skill name as well as a denotation as to what it is, and you can look for the card. Just if you find any extra copies, sadly enough, you don't get to resolve it, but it's still just too good not to use again.
So Nikita being added there, it's going to be a huge amount of shield. It's really going to help Manlong guard against Full Metal Paladin's columns. We see Manlong does have 3 soul, so that's a 25k shield and a draw card coming in from the Nikita. And with that pretty massive grip of cards in his hand, I think Manlong's more than set to survive next turn. So even though Manlong has the potential to push the game, he doesn't need to. That's the impressive thing here.
Alright, so he's going to send the Q-Today back into the deck, get himself a counter charge, so now damage and won't be as effective to him anymore, and since he's going to also be able to bounce his Piana back into his hand again, he'll be able to utilize it again next turn. His hand is a grip full of like half of his deck at the moment almost.
And most of those are high shield value as well, because we've seen him either searching for Great Freeze or Great Ones mainly, and those are pretty good shield in VE.
Yeah, so right now he's going to commit the set down to the board and going to get himself another Q today again.
Probably the one that he just put back. But again, this is what we're saying, between the Spiana, between searching with Kutere, this Ange deck just has so much grind potential. Like, it doesn't need to just explosively win the game the way, like, Revenger does. It can just, be like, deal 1 damage a turn, draw 5 cards a turn, and eventually I will win because I'm just doing more than you are. Second Kutere comes down. Wow. And again, he can just bounce this with Ange, so he's not losing any value here.
Not at all. In most decks, they would usually have it'd be a detriment to put a booster on your Vanguard unless you call yourself Dimension Police. But in this archetype, it just allows them to utilize it a lot more efficiently than other archetypes.
So this one's probably going to find another Ange to rewrite, is what I'm guessing.
He already discarded one, but I think he's just going to try to dig for his last copy, possibly.
Nope, not Ange.
No,
okay.
not Ange.
He's adding... Which one is that one? I can never remember their names.
Yeah, Lucilus, I believe is her name.
Yep. So it's a grade 1 that can... Basically an extra piece of shield. So again, he's just going all in on that grind out line of play there.
Okay, he's just revealing to his opponent, hey, I don't have any extra copies left in the deck. So Reliable Faith Lucilos says, if you have 2 or more force markers, this unit gets plus 5k power and plus 5k shield, becoming a 15k shield unit, and it also can intercept. And it can also intercept on the back row, which is really useful.
Yep. And again, he drops the Steza there, which again is another piece of recycle and another piece of plussing. So even... he sees Full Metal Paladin turn and was like, okay, I saw you drive check 2 PGs. You're probably surviving this turn. I raise you like 60k worth of shield in my hand instead. Full Metal Paladin like giving up his entire board just to guard this first tag. And then this second tag is what? 43-51? That is pretty huge. And again, like I said, maybe Manlong's trying to encourage Full Metal Paladin to PG some of this. But no, he's going to take it, go to 5, which is good because it turns on the Raging Fall. And a defensive as well, makes everything easier to guard. But even this Ange is only, I say only 21k. Now it's 31 from the force marker to Full Paladin's 23. Like, this is still quite a bit of shield if he wants to reliably guard this. Tyrrell coming down. Manlong is now saying, yep, here's going to be the push. You're on 5. I'm going to ask for these 2 PGs off of the Tyrrell swing.
So even though he might have the 2 PGs left, that's 4 cards he's gonna use. Then he probably needs to at minimum use another card, maybe 2 to comfortably guard the edge. Which suddenly that big grip of Full Metal Paladin is going to be cut in half. And then the question is, how many of those cards are usable for his next turn with Raging Fall Dragon? Maybe he's able to reset the Vanguard, but if that's the only offensive he's gonna generate next turn, he's not gonna punch through that massive hand size that Manlong just farmed this turn.
Yeah, exactly. And the concern here is that even though Tiro is discarding a card, Manlong still has more than enough to guard everything with, and any triggers from Orange going onto this Tiro is being applied twice. So that's already a 43k base Tiro. We're probably looking at 53 after a trigger. 53 lethal, they has to guard twice is it's not looking good. So drive checks, blank, and 2 blanks. So that's pretty good there. That's the best thing Full Metal Paladin could have asked for. No crits, no nothing. Manlong there using Steza to return a heal into the deck. Once again, just playing that grind game. Just saying, like, I have too many cards in hand. I'm just going to slide everything and whittle you down eventually.
I'm honestly surprised that those were 2 blanks, with all the deck filtering Manlong has been doing this game. That deck should have been filled with triggers at this point.
So Full Metal Paladin there using the 3rd PG just to guard everything here. We need to see something impressive come out. I think it's going to be very hard to do that. He's got, like, what? He's still got 5 cards in hand. It's still a healthy grip. He could still rewrite Raging Form and still go into Raging... Like, he can still do double Raging Form, but not having any Counterblast open, not seeing any heal triggers, makes going for this Raging Fall line really risky. Unless he stays on Raging Fall, locks a bunch of rear guards, and then goes for it the good old-fashioned way. But, again, with that many cards, 2 attacks is not breaking through.
I think he's currently contemplating it, like how he wants to approach his turn.
He rewrites the Raging Fall. Interesting. So he's admitting that he only has 2 Vanguard attacks this turn. So if you're in Manlong's shoes, you're like, okay, you only have to deal with 4 attacks. This is probably easy, right?
I think so too. Like, he can use the Rinnel to possibly get rid of the Tiro here off of the rearguard circle, but he ended up guarding with it earlier, but it looks like he'll be able to fetch it again here.
Yep,
Also, one of these attacks he can just comfortably take, being at 4, so you only have to deal with 3 attacks, which is most likely going to be the 2 Vanguard attacks, and probably the unit not on the force marker, unless Full Metal Paladin rips the crits, and being able to put it on the force marker as well.
Yeah, we'll see what he does here, because Manlong probably wants to take damage, because he does have the Spiana in hand, which is going to be countercharge 1, but then he'll want 2 damage, 1 for the Orange, 1 for the Tiro. I think the thing to note here is that, Full Metal Paladin does have 2 open damage, so he only needs to use Raging Fall Reverse's Act skill once to lock the back row, and then he has 2 standing back rows that he can lock for Raging Fall's cost, if he needs to do it, so in order to get all the full effect, and then still have the 2 front rows to attack with. But nope, he is going to do it 3 times, to just cost 0 counterblast, plus 15k to the board. And yeah, he is on 5 damage. So the risk there is that if he heals out of this now, he has to lock his front row attackers to be able to do anything with this. So the heat comes in, it's 25k shield, but this is a 48k reverse. So he needs a lot more shield than that, so that's 35k shield, which is tied, and then crit coming in for a 2 to pass from Manlong. We'll see if Full Metal Paladin can do this.
That's risky. If he has enough crits, this could be a greedy play from Manlong, as he has more than enough shield to make it a no pass.
This is currently like asking.
Triggers. Yep.
That's not a lot of triggers out of the deck.
Yeah, 2 to pass, he says. Go for it. First check.
That's a crit! That's a what? What is that?
No,
it was a Raging Form. It was a Raging Form.
Oh, it looked like a heal for. Oh,
and like we said, now that he's healed out of this, Raging Form now has to lock his front rows to restand. He's lost the 5 damage condition. That was probably the worst drive checks that Full Metal Paladin could have asked for. He's gonna go all power to Van, discard 3. And he's not gonna lock his front row? He has to lock his front row.
No, the condition is either to have 2 or more lock cards or 5 damage, and he has.
But he healed.
Yeah, but he has 3 lock cards in the back row. So
he has the back row as well.
Yeah,
so he can still go for it. Sure.
It's either one of the 2 conditions that need to be fulfilled.
So the PG coming from Manlong. There's a crit coming down.
Crit here.
all to the rear. So that is now a 45k Rukia. But I think Manlong can easily guard this and then just take the 25k Tatu, no problem, right?
I think so too. I think.
So there's
I think he
25k
tries to
shield.
go.
He needs 10. Yep, that's 30k shield. Puts him on 43, which is enough to guard the 35. And then, yeah, this 25k Tatu is going into the Tirawa. I like that.
Yeah.
I agree with the play. You need to remove that unit as fast as possible because that's going to be a dangerous card if it's left on the field unchecked.
So Full Metal Paladin, they're going to resolve both of his Dorrants.
He's trying to farm as many shields as possible. He's at 4, so he can take damage again. But with all those force markers on the field for Anj, and he's going to be potentially more, it's going to be tough.
This is what we said about grinding, right? Like, Full Metal Paladin is constantly losing cards on hand and losing cards on board to play his game. And, Man Long is like bouncing them all. He's not losing anything. Like, he's getting them all back. So at some point, Man Long can guard everything and then put back an offense. And anything that Full Metal Paladin guards with is stuff that he doesn't have resources to go with next turn. And we see here 4 cards in hand. Man Long can say, well, 4 attacks, you're going to die to one of these eventually.
Also, very important to note is that now that we've seen a heal, I don't remember if we saw a heal in the early game as well, but that's 1 out of 3 already gone. So if there is another, I think there's another one in drop before that. So that means all we know is 1 heal is unknown. So him also healing out of this potentially is very unfavored. It's very unlikely to happen.
So Man Long adding there the Pearl Sister with the Q-Ray. This could be his way of saying, yep, here we go. It's go time. You 4 cards in hand. This is going to be it for you, buddy. We also see that he still has the Lieslot in the deck. So even though he doesn't have Tirua to extend, if he really wants to push further with Anj, he can always Anj for the Lieslot, force to both rears, and just have 2 columns that still hit big numbers. He's making some columns here. Sender coming in just for a little bit more deck thinning. Of course, I don't think he has any grade 3s left at all. I think if I'm in Full Metal Paladin's shoes here, I'm definitely praying for a heal coming in very soon.
I think we all would in this situation. It's not looking favored. That's for sure. Like, it's not over till it's over, but it's looking darker and darker with the minute.
Spiana coming in, putting back the Anj to countercharge. So now he can use Anj to, like I said, find the Lieslot to find more attackers. This is very, very threatening. We see there coming down the Sistico. It's going to be a bit of more recycling and also, stop Full Metal Paladin's rear guards from standing as if he wasn't already in a problematic position. But again, all of these recycles, all of these engines just give him the ability to grind and long out. Down comes the Pearl Sisters. This is going to be it. These are going to be, all these attacks are 2 crit. It's going to be super lethal. And yeah, Full Metal Paladin just takes the crit damage, goes to 6, and that's going to be the game.
Sadly, it wasn't in the cards for Full Metal Paladin, but a very nice play from what we've seen. Both players gave them all. It's been a full grind fest from both players, and this game, like I was on the assumption that was a 2 pass and that was a crit and a heal, and that could have definitely been happening that game. Like that was the play what we had. Like things were on the knife's edge. It could go from either player's end. If one player made a small mistake, even though they had the resource or the combo potential, one small thing could change everything. Either the heal during the 4 damage play of the Raging From Dragon, potentially from Bermuda player that we saw that he maybe overestimated his guard potential and tries to bet on a 1 or 2 to pass. That some players I understand it with the restanding Vanguards, you want to bet a bit on the first attack and then comfortably PG the second one. But sometimes, if the triggers or the cards are not in your favor, that could punish you very heavily.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, like it's that dynamic we said about, one deck wants to go fast, wants to go aggressive, wants to win as soon as possible, and the other deck just wants to take it slow, grind it out, war of attrition, and it's just whoever can get that better grasp on the momentum and say like, no, I control the tempo of this game. We're gonna play by my speed. And yeah, we saw that Manlong just had all the pieces he needed. You know, he was patient. He wasn't, he didn't get like, overexcited. He wasn't like, oh, he didn't get nervous. He didn't let anything get to him. He's like, nope, I know what I need to do. I need to take it slow, and I'm just gonna go from there. But yeah, that's quite an exciting game, and I just received word from the third-fourth playoff. We had Stephen Lee, WCC SWO, beating out his teammate Toby Jones for the third place. So we have all the results coming for you now. So we're just going to cut to a very quick break while we prep the final brackets, the final standings, and get ready for the interview with our winner, Manlong. So see you in just a few minutes. Alright everyone, welcome back. Here we are. It is the end of the road. We have finally finished the BRO 2022 Europe V-Premium tournament. Gentlemen, thank you for coming on this journey with me. What are your thoughts about today?
Go ahead, Eric. Go ahead.
Oh, okay, thank you. Honestly, it's been much surprising because V-Premium has been a surprise for what we've seen today. As when we started yesterday, we felt more like Premium is more with the intricate counter plays with damage denying and calculate every single small detail, and V-Premium is more like who has the bigger gas tank, who can get his combo off as fast as possible, and that was the case at the early stages of the tournament. But once we start progressing into the top 8, we start to see this counterplay. We start people calculating what the opponent could do and how much counter west they needed, and they start to count for amount of shield value they have and what they could survive and what not. And we saw games starting to get closer and closer to the wire, and that's what Vanguard is all about, in my opinion. So this has been a very exciting tournament. But Jay, what's your thought about what we see today and yesterday?
I could not have heard it any better myself. At all. What about you, Ben? How you feeling?
Yeah, it's up until now, V was always my personal favorite format for a variety of reasons. And just seeing like the fact that there's so many different decks, again, even though we have like clear best decks in the form of Anj and Gurgit, things like Revengers, Kagero, Isabel rising up through the ranks, I personally find it a shame that we weren't able to show off things like Grand Blue, or we only had one game of Astral Poets, but there's still all this one person's trying to drop bombs, one person's trying to swing a wrecking ball at your face, and then how you navigate and weave in between that has been very interesting to see. But yeah, we finally have the final result, so let's take a look at the end bracket and the end results of the tournament. So once again, congratulations to our champion, Manlong, for taking out the first place in the grand finals against Full Metal Paladin 21. Commiserations to him for getting second place with Revengers. Like I said before the break, we had WCC SWO coming in at third, and finally Toby TCG getting that fourth place position. Still earning a certificate, still call himself a top player, very much well deserved. Commiserations to all the other 4 players who made the top 8. Congratulations for making it this far. It's a shame that they couldn't make it all the way, but of course, following on from the fact that Manlong is playing a Highlander deck, when it comes to winners, there can only be one. But I think here we have Manlong on camera with us, so we're going to jump to a quick interview with him and get his thoughts on his tournament and the days and the weekend. Alright, here you are, Manlong. Hello, welcome. First of all, congratulations on your win.
Hello.
How are you feeling?
I'm feeling very excited and surprised because last time I participated in BRO again and I got the first runner-up, but this time it's champion. It's very grateful that the Bushiroad can make this Rumble Online for the others player in other country can participate in, because in Hong Kong there's due to the COVID do not have any competition of Vanguard, so that I don't have any competition participate in Hong Kong. So it's very grateful that I can participate in Rumble Online this weekend.
Oh, that's great to hear. Talking about playing against players from all over the world, how did you feel about the language barrier? Because it can be very difficult to communicate abilities and skills. Did you have any problems with that?
Actually, I think the English for mine is not very good, but I still can handle it because of because I play in Highlander. The very difficult of the language barrier is the Q tier. I use Q tier to mention which card is very difficult for me, so that I remember some card that I will always to announce the card. For example, Aqua, Orange, and Sandra. These 3 cards.
Oh, that sounds admirable. That's really good. Do you have anything for America?
What I'm interesting about if we, what I want to take it back to the final fight that we saw, because one thing that we noticed during the fight was a very interesting decision when the first Great Feature, when you could start attacking, you put him at 4, but you could have pushed him to 5, but you decided to damage deny, or at least that's what we assumed, that you damage deny him. So was there a reason why you put him at 4 damage instead of 5 damage?
Because of I also play in Raging Form Dragon in Japanese version. Because of Raging Form Dragon, it will get the most benefit in 4 damage, and also in more than 4 damage. But I just think that if I push him into 5 damage, if he Raging Form Dragon attack and then go into Raging Form Dragon levers, and then he can get 1 more hit from your Vanguard, because since he's 5 damage. But now if I control his damage in 4, so that he cannot use the Raging Form levers to attack me once more, or when he Raging Form Dragon attack and check heal trigger, you minus his attack if he Raging Form and go to Raging Form and Raging Form if do go to 7 punches, so that I control the damage to 4. This is my reason.
Yeah, and it definitely worked out for you, really showing your skill there. So I want to talk a bit more about your overall tournament experience. What made you choose Orange, and what made you choose Highlander Orange as opposed to like regular, Relenka or pure Highlander?
Because of pure Highlander is not very stable, and why I use Orange, the Prism Highlander is standard, so that I use Orange Highlander. And then how about the
so like Relenka is a card that we see with Angela. Yeah, so like Relenka is a card that we see with Angela. Why did you not play that?
Relenka is a very good card, but it's much build more gravy in your deck, so that your gravy will too much and your shield may be not enough to block the others attack. Maybe if you go second, you don't have any normal grade 1 or grade 2 to block the attacks, because of if you have Relenka in your deck, you may want to keep the Relenka so that you don't have enough shield to block the start of the game.
Okay. So, do you happen to have any more questions, Eric, actually?
I think from what I've wanted to know, I've heard everything what I wanted to hear, like in-depth analysis about his experience, why he played what he played, and how he played. So if you have another question, I'm very curious.
Well, I myself don't have any more. Do you happen to have any more, Ben?
I was just gonna say, we've seen you at BRO. Like I said, you came runner-up before. You've been, top 8 quite a few times in the last events as well. Like you have become established, well known as a high-level player. Do you have any thing you want to say to other people? How they can get to your skill level? Any suggestions?
I think it's more preparation of that, because not only using the normal deck, maybe you use good Savas or good in the gold party. It's a very standard deck, and it can be much more effort to it. You need, I think, Vanguard is a very good game because of the card pool is much more bigger for standard, and then you can use many cards in it and use different play skill of that. And also you need to think more about what will do for your opponent. What opponent will give you a move of that? What opponent? What kind of opponent and what move he will do after you do this action or in his next turn? How much he can push you, and how can you defend for that? Is by how to play Vanguard. And also one thing is I think after this BRO, QTR must be banned. Thank you.
Well, if the man says it himself, I think we can't really argue. You know, spoken like a true champion. All right, well, I think that's gonna be it from us, guys. So, you know, we have roll out the red carpet, Man Long. You know, once again, congratulations. If you have any shout outs you want to say, you know, anything you want to say to the community, any final comments, by all means, go ahead.
Please support my fan card shop.
I mean, that's cool.
In
All right,
Singapore.
if I'm ever in Hong
Singapore.
Kong, if I'm ever in Hong Kong
No,
or Singapore, we'll. Oh, in
Singapore
Okay,
is
yeah.
a career card, and if in Hong Kong you need to support Grand Canyon, it's my shop.
All right, well, I'll make a note of that. You'll see me soon. All right, once again, congratulations to Man Long. Very much well done, and you know, hopefully we'll see you at the next Bushiroad Rumble Online, where you can get some more wins under your belt. But until now, thank you very much for talking to us, and
Yes.
we'll see you next time.
Yes, thank you. Let's see in NA. Thank you.
All right, gentlemen, that's it for week 2, and you know what a week it's been. You know, we had some metagame upsets, some really hype moments like 6 damage heals, crits coming out of nowhere, and you know, I think it's like I said, you know, I personally V-Premium has always been one of my favorite formats because it's just the raw, like, you know, it's just the raw, almost one placement. It's just you versus yourself, not like no other distractions. And I think it's going to be really interesting to see, you know, how the format evolves from here with the release of Clan Collection going into BCS season. But yeah, I think it's been a great weekend. Any final comments from you boys?
No, man, I think right now it's a time that we could probably talk about, you know, people who come together playing this awesome card game, enjoying themselves, just having a whole bunch of fun, and just trying to play the best game of Cardfight Vanguard that they can. It was really fun to watch.
All right. Well, of course, this is just week 2 of BRO. We still have many more events coming this way. So, JJ, why don't you walk us through what people can expect to see in the coming weeks?
All right, everyone, get prepared for week number 3, day 1, day 2. Both events are going to be happening on the 13th and 14th of August. Don't forget, registration is already open for Standard. That is the format that we'll be playing for the last Cardfight Vanguard tournament for the BRO. The closing on registration is going to be on the 10th, and the event itself is going to be starting at the 13th. And then day 2 is going to be on the 14th as well.
And then moving up, we of course not only have Vanguard coming from BRO, we also have Weiss Schwarz. Now, sadly, me and JJ won't be part of it, but Ben will be there, and that will be the week after the standard tournament, with on the 20th of August and the 21st, both being again a 2-day format. And Weiss Schwarz is again going to be a very exciting tournament because there's a lot to be in store there for the players and for our viewer and the casters.
Yep. And if for whatever reason online events aren't your thing, or you're not interested in Standard or Weiss, the BCS season will be starting very shortly after this, and many stores will be starting their shop tournaments very soon as well. I know some stores in Europe have their shop tournament on today. It breaks my heart that I can't go see the homies and play in real life. But for those of you in NA, you know, in the coming months, go earn your buy cards and, you know, go earn your wins at BCS. But of course, more information on BCS will be coming up very soon on the Bushiroad website, so be sure to follow all the official channels for that if you don't already. But yeah, you know, as JJ eloquently put it, you know, in the last BRO season, Vanguard good. Play Vanguard.
Yes, very much so.
I also have potentially a solution for a problem we cannot play in our shop challenge. I mean, we can all go to Hong Kong and go to his locals and play there for a shop challenge.
Sounds good.
That
sounds good.
Just book a ticket and we're both there. Let's go.
All right. But until then, that's going to be it from the 3 of us for this week. So once again, from myself, Zisrol, JJ, and Eric, thank you very much, everyone, for tuning in, watching us. Thank you, everyone, for playing in the event, for making it such an exciting event. Thank you to the stream team and the judges for all of their hard work. But we're going to be signing off for now, and we will see you all in 2 weeks' time for the standard tournament. But until next time, stay cool.